Stop. We went. Right, thank you for those who are watching at home and online. Thank you. We needed a short break then. Welcome back. We're now moving on to our second proposal. I must point out the Councillor Mears, who declared an interest in this particular one, as this concerns a company that she's involved with. We're moving on to application 2501371/FUL. This is Wellsmead, London Road, Camwell. And Tom Watts is going to present this one for us, please.
Thank you. This application relates to the retention of a replacement commercial building at Wellsmead, London Road, Camwell. The erection of the replacement building was first referred to planning enforcement in March 2023. The application is before planning committee as the applicant company includes a serving district councillor as a director. The officer recommendation is to refuse planning permission. This slide shows the location plan. The red line identifies the part of the site subject to the application, including the replacement building and the existing vehicular access onto London Road. You'll note that the red line does not include the wider landholding or the buildings on the site. The wider site benefits from a lawful commercial use confirmed in 2019 for lawnmower sales. This application would not authorise the use of any land or buildings outside of that red line boundary, and those areas remain unaffected by this proposal. The application must be assessed on the basis of the land and development applied for, as shown within the red line boundary. The aerial photograph shows the site in its wider context, with London Road running along the eastern boundary and the A38 to the west. The site is within the green belt. These photographs show the replacement building as viewed from within the site. Members will note that a supplementary report has been issued to include additional photographs of the front of the building, following the identification of a formatting distortion in the original image shared on the report. These images provide an accurate visual context for the replacement building. Members should also note the scale of the building as shown in these photographs. The door at on the front elevation provides a clear reference point, illustrating the overall height of the structure, which is approximately 7 metres. The applicant has submitted a supporting statement in response to the officer's greenbelt assessment, which has been published on the file, and it argues that the building is well screened and not readily visible from public viewpoints. Officers agree with that point and accept that the visual impact of the building is limited. However, as set out in the report, greenbelt policy and case law are clear that openness is not limited to visibility alone. Openness also has a spatial dimension, and it is the significantly increased footprint, height and mass of the replacement building that officers consider results in substantial harm to the openness of the greenbelt, notwithstanding the limited visual impact from public views. This photograph shows the existing vehicular access onto London Road. This access serves the site and is used in connection with the historic commercial use. However, the Highway Authority has raised concerns that the access is substandard and its intensified use would result in highway safety concerns. This slide shows the original and replacement building plans side by side. The former building left had an approximate footprint of 7 metres by 6.3 metres and height of 5 metres. The replacement building measures approximately 10.8 metres by 12.7 metres with a height of around 7 metres. The replacement building has a footprint 3 times the size of the structure it replaced, with a corresponding increase in bulk and mass. I'll briefly summarise the key planning considerations. In terms of the principle of development, the wider site benefits from an established lawful commercial use. The acceptability of this proposal The acceptability of this proposal depends on whether the replacement building itself complies with Greenbelt policy and highway safety requirements. For example, the Greenbelt, the replacement building is materially larger than the structure it replaced. Although officers acknowledge that the building is not readily visible from public viewpoints, national policy and case law are clear that openness is not limited to visual impact. The increased footprint, height and mass result in substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt in spatial terms, and so the proposal does not fall within the exceptions set out in paragraph 154 of the MPPF. In respect of highway safety, the Highway Authority has objected to the proposal. Officers agree that it's reasonable to conclude that a significantly larger replacement building would lead to an intensification of the use of the existing access, which is considered substandard, and this would result in an unacceptable impact on highway safety. In conclusion, the proposal results in inappropriate development in the Greenbelt and would intensify the use of a substandard access, and the recommendation before members is therefore to refuse planning permission for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one speaker in relation to this, and that is the agent for the application. So Louise Hinsley, if you'd like to take a seat. You probably overheard me say it earlier, but I'll say it again. You've got 5 minutes starting from the time when you start to speak. You'll be reminded when there's 30 seconds to go. And if you can speak nice and loud, because I'm deaf.
Thank you, members and chair, for the opportunity to speak today in support of the application for the retention of the replacement commercial building. First, let me emphasise the context and history of this site. This is not a new commercial venture, having been used for commercial businesses for over 40 years. The site has an established lawful commercial use for the sale, servicing and repair of lawnmowers and garden machinery. The business provides valuable local services and employment opportunities. The replacement building simply enables existing use to continue in a safe, modern and efficient manner. As this application is submitted retrospectively, it has not been possible to provide exact measurements of the previous building. Any measurements provided are an estimate based on OS data in historic images. We wish to clarify that the original image of the application building provided in the committee pack does not accurately represent the application building. However, updated clear images have now been provided to give a more accurate depiction. We fully acknowledge the sensitivity of development within the Greenbelt. However, this is not an attempt to introduce new development or urban sprawl. The site is previously developed land and this building sits within the same general position as the former structure. The building is well screened, visually contained and does not harm the wider openness of the countryside. The building has been constructed using materials in a sympathetic manner to minimise visual impact and blend with existing structures. The replacement building is not visible from the A38 or London Road. Images have been provided from key viewpoints, including the most prominent. These images were taken in the winter months when there was less foliage, yet the building remains barely visible within the landscape. As this application is retrospective, members have the advantage of being able to see the building in situ and assess its actual impact on the landscape. We respectfully urge the committee to consider deferring the decision this evening to allow a site visit. This would provide members with first-hand insight into the level of screening and the limited visibility of the building before reaching a final determination. The Highway Authority has raised concerns about the existing access. This is not a change of use application. The principle for a commercial building has already established. This access has served the site for over 40 years without causing safety issues. Earlier today, planning permission was granted for the visibility display improvements in connection with the scheme recently approved by the district councillors on the same site. This condition satisfies the concerns of the Highways Authority and demonstrates that a safe access can be achieved. As such, any concerns regarding highway safety in connection to this application are eradicated. The applicant is willing to implement these improvements immediately and work with the council on conditions relating to the site operation. This is a pragmatic solution that addresses concerns without penalising a long-standing local business. There are no objections from ecology or the tree officer. This scheme does not give rise to residential amenity concerns. We respectfully urge members to consider the economic and practical realities, the limited visual impact, and the opportunity to secure conditions that address any concerns. Approving this application supports sustainable rural enterprise, providing much needed jobs. Lichfield District Council have stated that the acceptability of this application is based on whether the building complies with Greenbelt policy and highway safety. The application illustrates that the building has been rebuilt on previously developed land and does not conflict with national or local Greenbelt policy. Regarding highway safety, the recent discharge of condition on the same site satisfies this planning consideration. For these reasons, we ask members to approve the application or defer for a site visit. Should members decide not to support the application, then we will be looking to proceed with an appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Rushton.
Can someone explain substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt inspection terms actually means?
Yeah, so the paragraph states uses the term substantial harm to the openness of the Greenbelt. And there's two ways of looking at it. There's the openness in terms of visual impact of how the building's viewed from how it sort of the visual impact of the increased height, size of the building, or as a spatial impact of the actual increase in size of the building stretching out into the Greenbelt. So both of those are part of the to be considered, and our view is that the increase in size of the building is what impacts the openness of the Greenbelt, accepting that the actual visual impact is minimal.
In other words, it's too big.
Councillor Powell.
Yes. Do we have any evidence that's been presented to us in the last sort of 12 hours that highways have now withdrawn their objections, or is this just speculation?
No, we had the previous permission from November. One of the conditions we included was that visibility displays would be given to improve the access. But that was based on so in the previous application, it was for the change of use to car sales. We considered the change was a neutral impact, and so this was a betterment of the visibility. With this application, as the building is increased in size, our conclusion, along with highways, is that the increasing the size of the building by that amount would lead to an intensification of the use of the access. So therefore, which we didn't do previously on the other application, because the access is the use of the access is being intensified. Therefore, we agree with highways that it could lead to highway safety issues.
So I think basically the style of the last application was that the lawnmower business had been replaced by the car business. This application suggests. Councillor Powell, please.
Yeah, can I do a follow on to that then, please?
Yes.
Yeah. So highways still object.
Yes.
Different situation from their point of view, but they still object. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Salter.
Yes, thank you. It's on that similar vein in that the approval given in November was for one business to operate on that site. This will be a separate second business operating on that site. And so what was okay for one business with the increased display may well not suffice for two businesses to run with their combined traffic flow. The other point about the size, the quick calculation and the increase is actually a region of 4.35 times the size of the original being approximately 220 cubic meters and this one being 960 cubic meters.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
It's a similar point. I just wanted a bit of elaboration on why the larger building affects is it that there's more agricultural machinery to look at and buy? I couldn't quite see why necessarily a larger building affects the use of it. It might just be area or, you know.
Is that the purpose of?
Well, I couldn't quite
basically the volume of business that can be done from a larger building is greater than
Yeah, I guess.
a building.
I also had a point about it's taken more than 2 years for this to come. The planning committee and
So the enforcement was 2023.
yeah, so two,
Right.
I did wonder. I don't know if this is a thing to say, but the notion that a retrospective application was almost a good idea because we could go and have a look at it. I mean, that seems to be a slightly dangerous argument, really.
Anybody else? Councillor Stevenson?
I'm just a bit confused about these visibility displays because we made it a condition of the change of use from selling lawnmowers to cars that visibility displays were put in. So are you saying now we have to have bigger visibility displays than have already been put in as a condition to the previous application, or is that still an issue because it's already a condition of the operation of their existing car sales business?
So we included the condition about visibility displays on the last application. We say it was a neutral impact for going from lawnmower sales to car sales, and we included the visibility displays as a betterment of the access. This time around, we're saying that the increase in size of the building would lead to an intensified use of the site, which therefore means the access, which was already considered substandard, we're then saying would be could be unsafe. That's what highways have said.
Yeah, I understand that. They said that was a highways recommendation on the last one that hadn't been pursued by LDC, but I actually moved that these displays were put in. So, I mean, are we suggesting there should be bigger displays now? I mean, how has it changed then? Because they already have to put these displays in if they're going to sell cars.
So they've discharged the conditions for those visibility displays. So best way of explaining it, Kerry. Help me out.
Through you, Chair, I think it's the intensification, it's a potential intensification of the use. We can't guarantee that it's not a highway safety impact. So last time round, we essentially said it was a neutral impact to change one of them buildings to a car sales business. This building is a bigger building, so you could have more business operating from there. So highways who have objected to this proposal consider that there's a lot more work needed to be done to that access to make.
Highways are saying the displays are not going to be adequate to solve the problem. But those were adequate to solve the problem for selling the cars rather than the lawnmowers. That what we've suggested, visibility displays, is no longer adequate to cope with having the bigger building. I understand. Thank you.
Additional business, really.
I think the interpretation is that it's not a good place to have a junction, full stop. But there was already business there, and we were happy that it changed over to one. And because it came to committee, we were able to put in the visibility displays. It's still not a good junction, even with visibility displays, if we're going to increase the volume of cars coming at it from a separate.
We're selling lawnmowers and cars. Yeah. Right, I'm with you. All right.
And we could do with the whole.
Anybody else wishes to speak? Councillor Powell, did you indicate?
Really going to move acceptance of the officer's recommendation.
Will we have a second there? Okay, Councillor Powell's proposing, Councillor Gelvin seconded. All those in favour of the proposal to reject this application, please give me a show of hands. All those against? Abstentions? So that particular vote for those watching was 10 people voted in favour of rejection, 1 abstention. Thank you very much for that part of the meeting. We now go into closed session, for which I've got to speak. Right. I'm sorry. In that case, those who left, I'm sorry. First up for discussion is planning committee speaking times. You all had an opportunity to see this. This has been discussed a number of times over the past few years with recommendations made by committees that don't sit on planning, and other views from council and views from everywhere. So, Councillor Hughes.
I mean, I wasn't clear of view and scrutiny. I am now. I think we should go for option C. I think we should go to 5 minutes for everybody. It's not clear to me why we have
Councillors having 10.
councillors have 10. I don't think the main problem with this committee, if there are any problems with this committee, is how long people talk for. And I don't think it's very long, or I don't think 3 minutes is enough for people who aren't
I think Councillor
public speaking.
Lewis, you got demoted then. Christine Lewis could explain to us why councillors get 10 at the moment.
The theory behind councillors having 10 minutes is, as you may be aware, that in our constitution and in council, councillors' speeches are for 10 minutes. And it was to, that I think is the theory. Whether that's right or wrong, that's up for you to decide tonight. But I think that was the original thinking, is that everything was in line with the constitution.
Well, then I would be in favour of option C. I think reducing it to 3 minutes for members of the public or agents is not, and I won't say what I thought about I did listen to that meeting actually. I don't know why, because I'm very sad, but they took a long time to decide that
spent longer than 5 minutes discussing it.
He talked for too long.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, I think 10 minutes, but ward members is too long, because I think that if you're not careful, you switch off anyway, listening for a long time, and what is sometimes repetitious anyway. I would go with 5 minutes for everybody, with the option of the chair using the opportunity to extend if necessary. But I would want to know how long that was going to be for, because if you don't have a time limit, it will go on and on and on, because councillors are notorious.
Your time now, thank you.
So I do think we need a cut-off time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we've got to go through anything, we should go for option C. I do think there ought to be another option here, which I'll come to in a minute. The paper is all about efficiency of running committees. I'm all in favour of that, but actually the role of a district council is democratic engagement. It's not actually to run efficient committees, although that is lovely if we can do it. And we've seen, our training day quite recently. You told us about other councils where planning committees have to have security guards on duty all the time. And I don't think we want to go down that route in Lichfield. If these people tonight were not happy, but at least they had a chance to speak and have their views aired, and they might well not have been successful in that, but that is really important democratic safety valve. Otherwise, I think we're going to end up with a row of security guards along there to protect us, and I don't want to see that in Lichfield. I do think that ward members have a very important role, because they are the people on the ground. They know what local people think in their wards. And actually, if you look at the paper, councillors have spoken on 4 occasions in the last 20 meetings. 2 of them were me, and I didn't speak for 10 minutes on each occasion. That works out as 2 minutes per meeting. Is that really too much time to give decisions that affect sometimes hundreds of people's lives? So I come to our main point, really, is I find it's actually deeply problematic that we have exactly the same process, whether we've had an application affecting one house tonight. We spend a lot of time and passion on this one house. We have exactly the same speaking rights for that as when somebody wants to build 750 houses in my ward, affecting hundreds of people, where 600 people have written into this council. And I would like to see perhaps a little bit more sophisticated system here, where that for major applications, perhaps more than one representative of the public could speak. Perhaps there should be a little bit of a scale here. It seems to me that the current system, to be frank, is a bit of a nonsense. Where one extension on one house gets as much attention as 750 new homes that may destroy people's lives. The decisions we make here today have a major impact on people who live in this district, and we've got to listen to them, even if we can't do very much at the end of the day. So actually, I would go for option C tonight, but I would like this to be taken away and some more thought given to it about how we can actually increase the amount of democratic input and give people a voice that we at least listen to.
So you're adding option D. Councillor Galvin, please.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I find myself agreeing with Councillor Stevenson again.
That's all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. There's a lot that works with the way we do things at the moment. You know, I agree that the ward councillors should have 10 minutes. You know, there's a lot of research that goes into what they say, and the 5 minutes would diminish that. And yet, like I've said, a lot what works. If it works, I try to fix it. And always try to improve it with an option D at some point, but at the moment, I'll stick.
Councillor Rushton.
Yes, thank you. I would also advocate for option C at the moment. I think the ward councillors having 10 minutes is a long time, but it's very rarely used. But when it is, it can be valuable. And as Councillor Stevenson said, 5 minutes today was valuable for those speaking, and I think 3 minutes is just a little bit too short. I just wanted a bit of clarification as well about the extension by discretion of the chair. Would it be mirrored for all 3 speakers?
That would be discretion of the chair, presumably.
Obviously,
I'm a great believer in parity and equality, so
8 minutes for the proposer, but only 5 minutes for the objector. I'm guessing it has to be equal. But
I can't guarantee that going forward in the future, but I mean, it has to be an equal playing field in my eyes. But so I think Councillor Stevenson's rush option D was in fact to take it away with a view to getting even more speakers, objectors, those for, those against, what have you.
I do agree, but there could be a good system. I would say I have a bit of concern on that one about it's a potentially slippery slope of what's significant and what isn't. How many, 700 houses is a lot, and yes, we should have views on that, but then for 10 houses to come forward, you have the amount and then just one house.
So do we draw a distinction for major applications as opposed to minor applications?
Well, that's arguable, but 70 houses and 700 houses are too.
Councillor Salter?
Chair, yes, I fully agree with the idea going forwards of proportionate representation, shall we say, dependent on the size of the application. But I think it's a very good idea. Yes, option C for now. I recall the reason this started the discussion way back a few years now. I
think it's been a few years.
COVID, didn't I think? Other measures have been put in place, and with the greatest respect to officers, they used to almost read verbatim what we had been sent anyway, and it took an awful lot of time. They have presentation to
the point now,
much more succinct and very helpful, and so we don't need to save any more time, to be honest, in my opinion, in that respect. What I would ask, though, as a supplementary to this, and it's something I raised a few months ago, and I believe I'm right in saying that it would be considered, and that is the option for, at the chair's discretion, to permit questioning or clarification from the floor. We regularly, I think it really happened tonight, but we do regularly, amongst our discussions, come up with a situation that we don't know an answer to, but someone sitting there probably does. Now, when we have licensing hearings, as you'll know, we as a committee sit and discuss and then invite the applicant for the licensing to come back in, and we ask them the questions and they respond. I'm not suggesting we go down that full route, but at least the option to be able to get clarification from the floor would be incredibly useful occasionally.
There you go. That's option E now added. Anybody else in relation to this, Councillor Powell?
Yes, I more or less agree with what's being said, and I'll say option C for the sake of this. But a couple of points. We are a democracy. One person deserves to be heard as much as 750. Therefore, if they need half an hour to put their idea forward, and obviously they don't under our system, if they did, then they should both have the equal amount of time. So I think you have to bear that in mind. I think secondly, also we've got to bear in mind is we're only here for just over another year. That's it. We're all unitary. So why are we talking about this? For the sake of what, about another 10 meetings?
I sort of understand what you're saying, but I suspect we're here for 2.5 years.
Must have been.
Which, in the meantime, we need to have an effective and useful process going forwards, because planning committees will still exist under whatever new format comes, and we need to be operating to the best practice from now. As far as I can make out, if we look at the time for individual speakers first, at the moment, I think I've got. If I can have a vote on those who are in favour of any of the speakers moving down to 3 minutes. Okay, so the two options now are ward councillors retain their 10 minutes and other speakers get 5, or everybody goes to 5. So all those in favour of everybody going to 5?
That's including the ward councillors.
Including the ward councillors. 4. Actually, there is one other option on there, whether or not it's 5 minutes on minor applications and 10 minutes on major applications.
The only thing, and there's me going, what are we on option F now? I'm not talking about.
No, I haven't mentioned option F yet.
No, so what another option is, it's not necessarily on whether the number of houses, is it the number of representations? Because you could have an application for 700 houses, but only 3 letters of representation. You could have, like we had tonight, it is one property, but as was stated, there was 134 letters. Kind of whether that was, you know, or a petition. So is it actually the scale of the representations received is dependent on, you could just go very, very easy and say it is as is, but the chair, whoever that may be, can kind of say, we have had 200 letters. Actually, 1 objector will not be enough speaking. We could go to 2 with your discretion there. But I'm also hearing from the, maybe, yes, we need to take this back and come up with more options for you all. Just there's a lot of different.
Just going back to what we're on at the moment, which was, we've had 4 votes in favour of 5 minutes across the board. Can I have a show of hands for those voting for no change for what we currently do? There is still the option afterwards of looking proportional. So
yeah,
I'd like to make a comment that I think this needs a little bit more of a look at, because as a council, there isn't consensus and there isn't a leaning towards one A, B or C at the moment. And I think Councillor Stevenson was onto a good thing when he suggested that there's a level of proportionality in regard to the application. But as district councillors, we need to have a better understanding of how the officers segment different applications to understand how that proportionality can be applied to be fairer with the time that we give and the amount of representations that we allow, and also a more of an understanding in how discretionary extra time would be allocated. I don't think we've got enough information to actually make a decision here tonight.
Right.
We stay as we are or not.
We're still going to make a decision in relation to whether we stay as we are or not until a further review takes place. So at the moment, I think that is carried. The proposal put forward by Councillor Stevenson, I understand that. If there are a lot of individual objections, I'm not a huge fan of petitions because you can take those anywhere. But individual letters written objections, I can see a proportional argument there. And that should be something to Councillor Sauter.
Yeah, on that question that, you know, we've heard, yes, we've had 200 letters of complaint or objection. But I think in fairness, it's fair to say that in the majority, they pretty much all say the same thing. And so I don't think you can sort of calculate proportionalism on the number of complaints if they're all saying the same thing.
No, it would be a bit pointless having 5 speakers saying the same thing.
Exactly. So quite how you work out the proportion, the idea of there being 700 as opposed to 6, yes, I can appreciate that.
Well, I think the complexity of this illustrates why you should probably be asking the officers to then come up with a scheme for it. I think our idea is a really good one. So I think we should have asked the officers just to think about that. And
Status quo.
Yeah.
Councillor Cattell.
This proportionality idea could lead to meetings going on for hours and hours and hours, and they'll probably say the same thing.
That wouldn't be permitted.
They may say the same thing, but these decisions are quite rightly affecting people's lives, and it's an opportunity for people to put things forward. And if it becomes the discretion of the chair, you don't consent to half. You don't say half of the people that write in, so 100 people.
We will know how many people have written in objecting, so that proportionality comes in there. We know so many people have objected, but if we have the time spent on speaking depends on how many people objected.
There is a danger of that. You're quite right to point that out. Councillor Mears.
There's other ways of measuring proportionality. It can be on the type of application, the size of application, the amount of residences that are being built, or whether it's a commercial development. So I think there's other ways of measuring the proportionality to still keep it in context and keep it quite simple, that don't necessarily rest on the number of members of public that have responded.
Councillor Hughes.
Just in, rather than making policy on the hoof, I wonder if we can just agree of the options that we've had in the papers to discuss, that we agree with option C, but that we leave it till the officers, perhaps in conjunction with the chair, to think about councillors, you know, how precisely you would think about applications, objections, etc.
Okay.
To make it more democratic and to encourage democratic input.
Also then Councillor Cattell, and I'll stop.
Thank you. Yeah, I would certainly go along with status quo, basically. So we remain as we are for now, which is option C. 10 minutes for 2.
Yep.
For our district members. One possible way of sorting the speaker, if a lot of objections come in, would perhaps be for an officer to have the ability to ask for scripts up front and test them as to whether there is too much similarity, or whittle it down that way. I mean, I'm throwing things.
I think it's dangerous for the officers to get into the middle of 2 objectors that might not be talking to each other, telling each other what they can and can't say. There's a danger to that, and that should be down.
It might be a case of that's
sometimes if we have to listen to somebody twice, we have to listen.
I think you've definitely given us some stuff to go away and think about.
Yeah, Councillor Cattell.
I think 10 minutes is too long. If somebody went on for 10 minutes, I'd be inclined to vote against.
So every time there's one,
Anything important can be said in 5 minutes.
You can use your discretion anyway.
I can use the discretion to extend if someone asks. Right, I think we did reach a conclusion there. We're not changing anything at the moment, but we're going away in relation to that.
There is a second part, and it is to confirm the order of which people speak. And I think Max may be able to kind of help with that. We have been in the past kind of going objector, supporter, whether that be agent, applicant, then non-committee board member. However, if I'm right, natural justice kind of says that there is a right of reply. So in essence, the applicant agent ideally should be coming at the end, like what did happen earlier. So it's just confirming that order if you're in agreement, and then we kind of stick to it. I don't know if you want to come in, Max, with your- that's my kind of interpretation of natural justice.
Right, I mean, in terms of any sort of public law forum, you'd expect the person either who's the applicant or the person that's been accused, depending on what the forum is, they have the right to reply, because clearly they can't anticipate everything that an objector is going to say in a meeting, and they might raise issues that haven't actually been included within their written representation, and they're not raised before, and obviously they should be given the opportunity to be able to respond to that issue and to provide a response. So I think in terms of fairness, I mean that most committees would have something in place where either the applicant speaks last or they have the right to come back on issues. Obviously, in terms of planning committee, that's probably not practical because of the way planning committees are run. So it probably makes sense to have the applicant last.
This is where my option F would perhaps help, that you would be able to go to the floor, clarification on a point from either side.
Right, let's go back to what we're discussing first, which is whether or not we go in that particular order. Is anyone in favour?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely.
In favour? Yeah.
Okay.
In relation to Councillor Salter's option of getting the opportunity to ask questions, I think that could be a very dangerous game to get into. Yeah, I think questions addressed through the chair.
Oh, absolutely. To be through the chair.
Views, please.
Because I think there's pros and cons, and I know I've said, and again, it's, you know, if we're looking at a licensing hearings, the reason it works is because you allow that cross-examination, and I know you're just asking for clarification. Yes, but that is, and then they're allowed to sum up, because you may ask clarification of one side, then the other side says, no, well, actually, no, they're wrong. And then you start getting into a crossfight, which is why you are allowed cross-examination at licensing hearings. So, and then who do you, and I'm not saying no, it's just when we go away, these are the options to look at and to bring it back to you, because do you only ask clarification for those that have registered to speak, or anybody that's here in the room? Exactly, but it's that level, and that's the things, again, we're more than happy to go back and look at and come back to those options. So I think that's really, I mean,
I'm just going to highlight what you were saying there, that in licensing, it's the council and one other party, but in planning, it's the council and at least two other parties.
No, it's not, you actually have objectors at a licensing hearing, licensing hearings. Yeah, so a hearing, it's very much almost like a court setup where you'll have an applicant and objectors, but you may have other officers, and they can all cross-examine each other, etc. So
Licensing, and there's more than two parties. You mirror that in planning.
Isn't this as important? Should somebody have a drinks license, or should somebody build 10 houses?
And I mean, there is specific licensing hearing regulations which aren't under the Local Government Act. Again, that's something we can go away, look at. Obviously with licensing hearing, it is only one application and it can still last as long. Again, but I understand the comments have been made tonight. It's about
usually just three councils making decisions, so only questions coming from three people as well. So,
but it's something we can put in an options paper and bring back, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton.
Yeah, I mean, whatever happens, it's got to go through the chair. You can't have a free.
Oh, absolutely.
No, you can't. Okay. Right. I think we concluded on that paper, are we?
Yes.
How do we?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, thanks to the public that I thanked earlier. We are moving into closed session for this one, which is the Planning Enforcement Appeal Quarterly Update. So we get an update on the appeals that are taking place and the results they are. Probably do an overview, mentioning particular.